Hello, and welcome to Ficsation, where I talk to my guests about their fiction fixations. I'm Daniel Radford, author, podcast host, and maker of things, and today I'm joined by Joel Flanagan-Grannemann to return to fertile ground on my shows because it's yet another Star Wars episode. Uh, my audience cannot get away from it, and I won't let them.
Hey, Star Wars is a good thing.
So yeah, welcome.
I'm happy to be here. Good to finally talk to you in sort of person.
Yeah,
We've
close enough.
conversed over email for a while.
Yeah, it's all of the people this season are mostly fairly new to me, and you've all been very interesting to get to know more or less. So, and you've
That's
all had
cool.
really good, interesting suggestions. Like for this episode, because we're not just doing a generic Star Wars episode. You actually wanted to talk about the radio plays from the 80s and 90s,
Yes, yes, I love them. I'm obsessed with them.
which sort of adapted the original trilogy. But
Yes.
perhaps just to kick us off, then, you could give us just a general summary of like what the deal with the radio series was and how it differs or doesn't from the films or other adaptations. Because, as best I can tell, compared to a lot of other side media, it seems to be a roughly one-to-one adaptation of the OT.
It pretty much is. Can I introduce myself first so we know
Oh
who we're
God, yeah,
who we're talking
please
to?
do. Sorry.
Yes, I'm Joel Flanagan-Grannemann. I'm a epic fantasy writer. I'm writing the Servants of the Moon and Sun series. It's an epic fantasy retelling of Sleeping Beauty based on the idea of what if what if Aurora was Maleficent's mother and the curse still happens. And that was the whole idea. And I'm up to 5 books right now, and we're working on the 6th one. It's about to go into editing with my wife, who is my editor. She is my alpha reader. She is my everything. She keeps my author boat afloat. So, but we're here not to talk about my books. We're here to talk about the Star Wars radio drama and how. First of all, how big of a Star Wars fan are you? Do you know? Are you deep into it? Do you just know the movies? What's your deal?
I'm somewhere between the casuals and the obsessed. I'm in the middle somewhere. I've
Okay,
seen
that's cool.
I've seen all of the movies. I've seen the animated adaptations, and I've watched through the Kodor games and played the first of the Jedi games that came out recently in the last like 5 6 years. So I'm doing okay.
I haven't done any of the video games other than I did the TIE Fighter game back a long time ago when that one came out. I specifically got a joystick so I could play that game because I really love that game. But I'm pretty much a Star Wars fan from birth. I saw the original movie when it came out. I think we saw it in the drive-in. I have a vague memory of seeing it at the drive-in, but I do remember seeing it when it was re-released right before Empire came out, I believe. And I have a very strong memory of seeing Empire Strikes Back in the theater, and of course Jedi when it came out. And I've seen all the prequels, all the sequels. I think we've watched every one of the series, the live action, the animated ones, all that. So I'm a very big Star Wars fan. I a lot of the expanded universe. I when that started with Timothy Zahn, with the Era of the Empires. I read all those, and I kind of stopped reading about uh, not in the 2000s sometime when the expanded universe just got too big, and I just couldn't follow it anymore. But I've
Well,
been a
Disney
big star.
changed
I've
that,
always
so
been. Yeah. Well, all that stuff is now legends now. So, but they're still great stories. But you gotta the first radio drama came out in 1981, and that was New Hope. Empire came out in 83, and Jedi came out in 1996. And you got to remember back to this time, there was there was only there was only when there was only the first movie that came out, and there was nothing else. There was no books there. I think there were some comics, but I really didn't know anything about those at that time. So when the radio drama came out, it was like this huge. It was huge in my life because this was Star Wars. This is something I could listen to. We taped it off the radio onto a reel-to-reel tape deck. I don't know if you even know what that is. I don't know how old you are.
I know the gist.
Yes.
I'm 30,
So
so I'm not like
hey,
tiny, tiny, but
but we taped it off. It was broadcast on NPR, and there were half-hour episodes, and they were just so amazing. They got Mark Hamill reprised his role. Anthony Daniels was C-3PO, and those were the only two original cast members that
um,
were actually
yeah, I
in
was
the
say,
radio drama.
didn't Billy D. Williams also
Yeah,
reprise
Bill.
his role
Oh,
later?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Billy D was in Empire, but for New Hope, it was just the two of them. Plus, if you count, because Ben Burt did the sound design, so you can sort of say that R2 was the original voice too. So,
I was genuinely surprised, but I was like reading up on it because I unfortunately didn't get to listen to it like I wanted to. I may
oh, I've
still do
listened to
that
it
at some point.
many more times for you, so that's fine.
I was surprised that they actually had anyone come back and reprise their roles. And then I read out more about it, and George Lucas basically sold the rights to the radio show for a dollar.
Wow, I didn't that I
Apparently,
didn't know about.
yeah, it was to his because it wasn't just NPR. It was like through a university radio station at his old alma mater.
Yeah,
And I think he was
yeah.
trying to. I think the gist was he was doing it to like save the station or something, which is just cool.
Oh, yeah, that is cool. And now that I think about it, Mark Hamill became such a big voice actor because he did all the Batman
Oh, he's
stuff. I think
prolific.
this may have been where he started doing voice work. So, and you can tell the difference between what he does on New Hope and what he does in Empire. He definitely gets much better at, because I think Empire is the much better radio drama for how well it flows. New Hope is still great, but Empire is just a little better, in my opinion.
I mean, that checks out
Yeah.
given the movies. So
Yep. Oh yeah, that too.
it's one of those situations where A New Hope is a good movie,
Yeah.
but it was Empire that was like, what if the franchise was actually really, really good?
Yes. And when this came out, as I said, this was the only Star Wars that was available. So I listened to this. We taped it off the radio and I put it on cassettes, and I listened to it all the time. I listened to it, I all the way through. I maybe 200, 300 times when I was a kid and a teenager. I would always have it on as almost background music. It would be so ingrained in me that I could, even now, if I think about a certain scene, I can hear that scene in my head because I have such a very good audio memory, but I could hear those various scenes. And it was just so formative in my life as an imaginative person, because I could, listening to this, I could see the scenes from the movie and I can imagine the scenes that, because there's extra scenes in there that are part of like the deleted scenes, and there's a kind of almost extended scenes in it. So I could imagine those, and I think listening to that radio drama over and over and over really affected how I write dialogue, because I with my books, they're epic fantasy, but they're very dialogue and character focused, because the way the radio drama works is there's no narrator except at the beginning and the end. Everything else is just the characters talking and the sound effects. So there's no narrators like saying this happened and this happened. It's all you get everything from the character's dialogue. So that really affected how I write, because I really focus on on what the characters say and how they say it. And I think I really got that from the radio dramas.
That is actually really interesting to think about because it's interesting on multiple levels because famously the dialogue is, other than how good the quips are, the dialogue is by and large one of the weakest things in Star Wars.
Yeah. And I think Brian Daly, who wrote the actual all three of them, actually is a master of not only taking the dialogue from the movies but expanding on it and creating these moments. Because I listened to the whole thing over the last couple of days, and Empire has so many really great quips and so many really, really great lines, especially between Han and Leia, and then back and forth between C-3PO and Han and Leia, and it's the dialogue is just really snappy, really quippy. I mean, it's amazing, and there's so many great lines. There's just so many great lines that are both in the movie and just in this radio drama.
That yeah, I'm gonna have to go and listen to these at some point.
Oh,
I'm
you
so
definitely have
curious. Star Wars with good dialogue. Let's go.
to.
No, look, to be fair, the dialogue is not that bad either. I'm playing it
Oh
up with a
no,
bit. It definitely has throughout the years there've been some banger lines as throughout Star Wars' history as well. But we all know that dialogue was not the strong suit. But that's okay
no,
because
no, it's not.
I would love to learn from that because as a writer from my side of things, I won't say my dialogue is bad. I don't think it is. Please still buy my books. Uh, but it's definitely not my strong suit. It's definitely something I have to work to make my dialogue feel natural. Thank God for editors.
Oh yes, editors save us every time. I tell that to my wife every time. You save me. You make me a better writer. That's what editors do.
Yeah.
And I also think it gave me the ear for dialogue and the ear to hear how different people say different things. And I also work retail, so I interact with whole bunches of people all the time. So I hear all kinds of different accents and all that. So I think those two things really help me with my dialogue, and then I can I can steal little lines and steal little inflections from here and there, and also put my own spin on it too. So these radio dramas really help me.
You see, now I'm going to have to do it just as professional development.
Yes, I think you
I,
should. You should definitely do it.
yeah, I mean, I'm saying I mean a lot as proof of how good my dialogue is. We'll see how many of those I edit out in the editing process. But I think that is just a really perhaps something more people should consider doing, writers who want to improve their dialogue ability is because
Yeah,
I'm a big proponent of learning from other mediums. I have been for a long. I think it is silly to limit yourself to just a narrow segment of all the fiction out there to, build yourself up on and base your own learning on because you can learn so much from other mediums and other genres and things like that. And the way you talk about the radio play makes me think I clearly need to listen to more radio plays because even more than because one of the best things about, film and TV is that a lot of the exposition gets communicated through dialogue as opposed to, exposition on a page. Granted, they could also
yeah,
do stuff like in background scenes and things like that as well. But even in a radio play, you've only got speech, maybe narration, but there's not a lot of narration in a radio play generally. It's mostly dialogue, like you said.
yeah.
So you would have to get really good at working exposition naturally into speech, and I think that's a skill that would be very beneficial to an author.
And that's what I try to do too with my writing. I don't like to do big. I will do it, but I don't like to do big long exposition scenes of descriptions and all that. I'm very not minimalist, but I try to get the plot needs to come through the characters, the action needs to come through the characters. They aren't narrating themselves, but that's where I really kind of focus because I hear their voices in my head, and I know how they speak and I know how they're going to react to certain things. So not only did I listen to these Star Wars radio dramas, but there was the Hitchhiker's Guide radio dramas, which are famous, and there was a couple of the Lord of the Rings, which I listened to. I guess I'm very audio focused because I love music too, and music gives me a lot of inspiration too for my characters and my situations. So I guess I'm very audio focused. I never really thought of it in that way before, but I guess I am.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of I almost always have music playing whilst I'm writing too. So, but it's funny you mentioned Lord of the Rings as well because that's one of the things that, and I know that this is basically the gravest sin, and I'm sure I lose a part of my audience every time I say this out loud in an episode, but I'm not a huge fan of those books. With an asterisk, I love the stories. and the world building, I would never dispute that Tolkien was a genius at creating a story and creating a world and creating characters. But they read like textbooks. It's the same reason I don't particularly like George R. R. Martin's work, because he's trying to imitate him.
They do that, yeah, they do in some ways. In some parts, they really do. Because he was a scholar of language, he was a
Yeah.
scholar of history, so he's really putting all that into his scenes and his characters. So yeah, it kind of does kind of read that way. But sometimes there's places for everything.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I would never dispute that the man was, you know, a gift.
Oh yes. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for Tolkien.
Most of us wouldn't.
Nope. Nope.
It sounds like you also wouldn't be doing a lot of what you're doing now, but wasn't for these radio plays, though.
I don't think so. I don't think I would be. Um, I wrote all through college and high school, but then I stopped when I graduated from high school because not from high school, from college, because I got engaged to my wife, we got married, we moved, I started working retail, so things just got in the way, and I just stopped. I stopped writing. And then when I got this idea for this series back in September of 2019, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I watched the movie Maleficent and thought this would be a better movie if Maleficent was actually her mother, because there was a whole, have you ever seen that movie Maleficent?
I have gone to bat for that movie on these shows so many times.
It's a fun movie. I mean, it's really pretty. I mean, the effects are really good, but there was such a mother-daughter relationship between Maleficent and Aurora. They were going for the fairy godmother thing, I think, but
Yeah, I think so.
it just hit me that if that was really her mother and she still does the curse, how first of all, how do you get there, and first of all, where do you go from there? So we watched this movie, we were on vacation, and I stayed up about half the night thinking about it, and then in the morning I got up, wrote out this 2 or 3 page outline of what became my first two books, and then just started writing. And I found the name Talia, which is the name of my first book, Talia, Heir to the Fairy Realm. And then once I found that name, I knew that character. I knew who she was, exactly who she was. She still surprises me at times, but I still knew who she was and what she would do, and it would just rolled from there. But we're getting a little off topic.
That happens in these shows because of the fact that I do not do any scripting whatsoever. But I can see the trajectory, and
Yes. Oh yeah.
it's always really interesting to me to look at that sort of like the writer genealogy almost, the
Mhm.
because I've said many times I'm sure for just about anybody, any creator, even not just writers, you can look at their current work and their current interests and all those things about them. And if you follow that line back to where they started in childhood, you will always go, yeah, I can see it. I get that. That makes sense.
Oh, it's a very straight line from what I read and what I listened to what I write now. I mean, there's Tolkien, there's Janny Wirtz, there's Catherine Kurtz, whose Dear Niece series inspired a lot of the magic that's in my fairy books. So yeah, I mean, it's an absolute straight line.
It may be with a sci-fi coat of paint, but Star Wars is an epic fantasy.
Oh yes, oh yeah, it's definitely space fantasy.
Yeah, which is fine. Like that's not a criticism of it. It's just true.
Yes, oh
So
yeah, definitely.
just looking at that and hearing about how you talk about thoughts on dialogue and how you write your dialogue, and considering that influence that Star Wars had on its own, plus the radio plays, it's like, yeah, no, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And the radio plays they're so fun to listen to because they've got the John Williams score, they've got the Ben Burt sound effects, so it's not like bargain basement sounds. I mean, the voice actors are very good. Brock Peters plays Darth Vader, and he's got this very deep James Earl Jones voice, and all the other characters are very good. John Lithgow plays Yoda in Empire, which is kind of strange to
That
hear, but
is, I saw that. I was like, what?
it works. It really does. He's got that kind of it's not quite the Grover thing from Frank Oz, which I don't understand why they didn't get Frank Oz to do it. I mean, he must have been busy or doing something,
I mean,
or just they
he was
wouldn't
a
pay.
very busy man.
Oh yes, but the voice actors are all very good, and the writing is really top notch, and it's very good.
I am very glad to hear that they got someone who could manage because that one when you t talked about this when I was reading up on it, one of my biggest like oh no was the idea of I'm gonna have to listen to a Vader that's not James Earl Jones. Oh dear.
And
Uh,
I mean, it's I've listened to these hundreds of times, so it's not jarring for me. But it might be a little jarring for someone who isn't seeped in this. But once you get used to it, it's the same. It's the same cadence. It's the same deep voice. I mean, then the words are there. It's just I mean, it's slightly different. And the Han Solo and Leia are different, of course, but they're the same enough that once you get used to it, you won't really notice it.
I don't think you could have paid Harrison Ford enough to do what he would play back
You can
in
barely
the
pay
80s.
him to be in the movies he's in, but I mean they're very fun. New Hope is 13 episodes, and it doesn't start where the movie starts. It starts. I don't know if you've seen any of the deleted scenes or the behind the scenes stuff from A New Hope, where Luke is on the moisture farm and he's in Biggs, his childhood friend, comes back from the academy, and they have this bit thing about the power station.
I haven't, but I do know. I remember sitting going, "Who is this guy? Why are they talking like I
Yeah.
should know him?" And then I found out later that
Yes.
he was in a deleted scene. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's
Yeah.
so
And
funny
and
they
those
kept that.
those scenes are that whole first episode is really fun because it gets into Luke's. He's a teenager and he's a street racer essentially, but he's also a nerd. He's a nerd. He wants to go to the academy because he wants to fly because he's a speed demon. So one of the characters say he's just an accident waiting to happen, and it's just he's so reckless, and but he's reckless, but he's also so earnest. And it's really it's this really interesting dichotomy of this character, and you see how he evolves from the first episode to the last episode, where he becomes more confident, and then into Empire, of course, where you see he becomes a commander and he's leading a whole flight, and it's really fun. It's really interesting, and Brian Daly did a great job on it.
Yeah, it sounds like that it provides a lot of context for sort of who
It
he is
does. It really
because
does.
again, as much as I love the movie, A New Hope really does sort of gloss over a lot of who this character actually is in favor of just killing off his aunt and uncle as quickly as possible so he can go off on his
Yeah.
journey.
And also I discover new things about these plays every time I listen to them, because listening to them just now, I realized Luke is obsessed with his father, but he does not mention his mother until Return of the Jedi. And he just mentions it offhandedly. He's so obsessed with his father. His mother isn't even mentioned until Jedi, when he tells Leia who she is. And it just that just hit me really hard, because a lot of my books are a lot of women characters and a lot of mother daughter interactions, and that, so that really hit me, realizing that there's a lack, again, a lack of strong women characters in these books, other than Leia, in these movies, other than Leia.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in fairness, compared to a lot of the stories of the time, I would say that Star Wars was actually pretty progressive.
Oh yes, yes.
Like, okay, the gold bikini was a little unnecessary, sure,
Oh yes.
but Leia was she was she wasn't my favorite as a kid, because I w first saw that movie as like a 6-year-old boy. So, of
Hmm.
course, I was like, the guys with the lightsabers are the cool ones.
Yes, yes.
But the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, no, they would have been so screwed without Leia so many times. She is so strong and cool, and now she's one of my
And
favorite characters.
And you realize from the moment they get her out of that jail cell, she takes over. She takes command, and it's you know, Han and Luke don't know what they're doing. They're making it up as they go along. And Leia says, "What the heck are you guys doing? Just follow me. We're going this way." And it's the whole thing, and it's really fun to listen to, and it's just such a strong presence in there, and it's really amazing. It's really fun.
Yeah, I'm glad. Like the more you talk about it, the more the more curious because I was curious in the beginning. I don't know if you remember from the emails, but you basically said, "Yeah, let's do this," and I was like, "That's a thing? That's awesome!" Because we've talked about radio plays on SAB before, and I think we've probably touched on their existence in Fixation before, but I've
Yeah.
not had much experience with them. The only time I've listened to one was back in primary school when I was like 10 or 11, and we listened to the War of the Worlds recording,
Okay. Yeah.
which was cool. I liked it. It was awesome, but they're not really a thing, at least in, I think they're still bigger in Asia, but they're not really a thing so much in Australia or the US or any of that.
Yeah.
Although
I think audiobooks
audiobooks,
have really taken over
yeah,
that market, but
yeah,
they're still not the same unless they're fully cast. Audiobooks, they're not really the same.
yeah. So to hear about this, it seems like it occurred at exactly the right time.
Oh, it did. It really did. To me, it kept the franchise alive until between movies, and then after when until Timothy Zahn's books came out, it really kept them alive.
So, because I think the 80s as well is when they started doing all this extra stuff, because I think that's when a lot of the
Yeah.
comics started. It's when those first books came out. So it
Yeah.
is interesting to hear about. I don't know the order any of it came out in, but I wonder why they did it almost. Oh, I mean, I know why George Lucas agreed to it, I guess. I wonder if that's the only reason was to preserve this radio channel. But
I mean, probably, but it was a big. I mean, it's one of those foundational points in my childhood that I can't really think about my childhood without thinking about me sitting in front of the big stereo rack we had, and listening to these things, and tuning in every week to hear the latest episode, and to make sure it gets taped so I can listen to it over and over and over again. And I found them several years ago on one of the podcatchers I was using, and it was amazing because there were a couple episodes where I started the recording started too late, so I missed the kind of the beginning of one or two episodes, I believe, and some of the episodes got cut off toward the end. So it was fun. It was fun. It was really neat to finally hear them complete in good quality.
oh yeah, am lucky in that I only caught the tail end of the era where that was a real problem. Missing the beginning or the end of an episode and being like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know anything that happened. On to the next. I really hope that there's gonna be some context. Thank you, recaps. I'm really glad we had those.
Yep. Yep. And it's funny, for some reason I missed the last episode of Empire Strikes Back,
Oh no.
and so I couldn't get that one for it was quite a while until I finally found my a family friend had taped it, and he finally was I was finally able to get the copy from him. So I didn't hear the last episode for the longest time. Just
Oh,
ended at
that
episode 9.
sucks. News is, I imagine you'd probably seen the movie and knew what
Oh
happened
yes,
anyway, but
I knew what happened, but it's still
it still
it.
sucks.
Oh yes, yes. The one thing about it is the title. The titles of the episodes are really so amazing. For I have I have the list off Wikipedia here, but a couple of them. The first episode is "A Wind to Shake the Stars," and
Yeah.
then what else
Coincidentally,
is
I
there?
also have that list open.
Okay, so you look at those and you see how amazing some of these episode titles are,
They all sound like
and
book titles,
oh yes, or chapter titles from a book,
like
and
Wild Giants Mark Time. Come on.
oh yes, that one's really that one's a little bit hyperbolic, but still they're still really amazing. And I know a lot of authors don't use chapter titles anymore, but I do. Again, it's almost part of my writing process. So I find myself kind of copying some of these the way they do the chapter titles, because some of them are three things in a row. There's from Empire. There's a couple of them, like what is one that I've kind of stolen? New allies, new enemies, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the other one? There was something from New Hope. Oh, rogues, rebels, and robots. I've used that sort of title in for chapter titles in my books.
I wonder how much trouble I got into saying robots.
I don't know. I don't know.
We don't understand. We need the alliteration.
Yes.
I have a friend who loses his mind if we dare say robot, not droid.
Yes, and I think in some places in the episodes they refer to them as an automaton. There'll be PA announcements that all persons and automatons be prepared for reversion, or it's something like that, referring to the droids. So I really think that Lucas, maybe if he never said it, that the droids are sentient. That they, because the way 3PO reacts, I mean, he fears death, he fears injury, and that's, if you were a true robot, you would be not be programmed to fear death in that way. So I really believe that these robots are these droids are sentient
I mean, I never questioned it.
in their own
They
way.
have so
Yeah.
much personality, and the more I learned, because most people who touch this franchise never learn how all that works, and the more I've learned about how like in the canon the minds of droids work, the more horrified I've become. Because
Oh yeah, talking.
for those who don't know, they start as a blank slate, and then as their memory evolves, they develop their personalities. So when they wipe their memories, they're reverting them back to their innate state completely and removing their personalities. You're basically killing them, and then
Yeah,
forcing someone
yes.
else to live in their body.
Hmm. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
disturbing.
Yes, it is. You kind of don't want to think about it that way, but yeah, that's really what's happening.
So it's does stuff like that come through more in the radio play, like all the little things that they couldn't really fit into the movies
I,
originally?
be- I Yeah, I believe it does. I believe it does, especially in the second episode, which is pretty much Leia's story, which is totally not canon anymore. It's not. It totally contradicts everything that's been shown in Rogue One and all those other. There are so many versions of how they get the plans, and they finally, with Rogue One, that's canon. But it's really interesting seeing her journey. She starts out as a rebel leader, but she kind of her eyes get opened to what the empire is doing. It's kind of fascinating. And then she has talks with her father about, we should be doing more. We should be doing more, pressing him to act, to support the rebels more openly.
From my standpoint, that's really interesting because I've always wanted to see more of how she actually got involved. Because it's
Yeah,
something that even in the current canon is kind of glossed over. We know that Bale gives her the plans at some point, and that she's clearly very involved in all that. But we never really, despite all the extra content, we never really see how any of that came to be. We've seen more of how Mon Mothma got involved, which is awesome.
yeah,
But
yeah,
uh, so I would love to see that more of that. And
yeah,
it is interesting you talk about that because I have been curious about how their version because I read that they have their own version of how the plans happen, right? Because I Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie.
that's my wife's favorite too. Yep.
I guess we can tack Andor into that as well because that also built into a lot, and it's probably my favorite of the series, although Clone Wars gives
Yeah.
it a run for its money. Uh,
Yep.
so for me, anytime I'm like, oh, there's another. I mean, I knew there was other versions of that. I'm like, I don't know. if I could listen to that and just shrug it off. I'm terrible at like separating alternate canons. I can't help but go, but the other one's better.
It's you kind of got to look at it from it's remember when this was created, that when Lucas may have not had a really clear idea of what how the plans got to where
It
to
wasn't the
what
important
happened
part.
before. Yeah, because that wasn't what he was focused on. He was focused on, the right now. We have the plans, we got to deal with it. But so you got to kind of, turn off that kind of analytical part of your mind and then focus on what that's the story here is being told. And then, because these are like those are almost alternate timelines for the movies. So you kind of got to treat them that way. At least I do in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to. Alternate timelines is one of those things that I often struggle with to enjoy,
Yeah.
I guess, because it often they just make other things feel meaningless. Or but you've given me something here with them delving more into like Leia's starting point and journey and things like that, because that's a part of the mythos that is very lacking from my experience. It's probably out
Yeah.
there, obviously. I just haven't seen it myself. So to hear that that's there, that's something that I can go, okay, there's a reason for me to delve into this now, and not just see this other alternative canon.
Yes, yes. It's definitely they're definitely worth listening to, especially for I mean, even if just to listen to the how the quippiness of it and listen to the dialogue, and you get to see there's so many little lines that I love so much that I kept picking out. There's this one scene in Empire where Han is it's on Hoth base where Han is trying to figure out where Luke is because Luke hasn't reported back yet because he's been attacked by the Wampa, and he's arguing with the deck officer about whether he should go, whether anybody's seen Skywalker come in, and Han says something about it's getting cold outside if you haven't noticed, and the deck officer responds with, "I have noticed. I joined up the rebellion because I noticed things." And that's such an amazing line that says so much. It's both quippy, it's also, yeah, I get it, dude. I'm doing my job. Can you let me do my job? I know you do what you're doing, but it's also, I noticed what the Empire is doing. That's why I'm here. So it's a simple line that works on so many levels, and it's just so nice, so neat.
That's such a good way to give so much depth to a character and say so much about them that's completely unrelated to what they're talking about without it feeling
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, and I stole that line. I put it in my latest book. I think that I'm editing now. I notice things. I stole that line because it's such a great line, and it's because the book I'm getting ready to edit is about this woman who's a woman of privilege, and she's thrown into this situation where she's realizing that everything she's been taught is not what is really happening in the world. So she's got to unlearn everything she's learned and, accumulate all this new knowledge. And she just finally, okay, I'm finally noticing these things all around me that I should have been seen for so long that I'm just figuring out now. So,
What's really cool about that, actually, now that you mention it, is that
mhm.
the spirit of that like journey, that line, is still showing up in modern media in the
Yeah,
franchise,
yeah,
because that's the entire premise of Jin's journey in Rogue One. That's the entire like
yeah,
crux of the relationship she has with Cassian, because the whole thing is she's been willfully blind,
yep,
and his response to that is like, at one point basically says, yeah, you care now because it's something personal to you, but some of us have been seeing this happen for our entire lives.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a cool little bit of the DNA that's held on, which I really like, that is now still showing up in like the contemporary media.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, because I mean, that's the whole thing. That's, about, about resistance to tyranny is, realizing that it affects you personally, but it also affects all these people that you've only met, that you don't even know that it's affecting them. So important. that it's affecting them so much that you gotta care about yourself, you gotta care about your friends, but you also gotta care about that planet that you've never been to, but is gonna fall under the Empire's rule.
Because that's always been one of the things that I always thought was lacking about the OT in particular, is that, and that, obviously later media always explored this more, this idea of, what the Empire actually is, because it's kind of just a nebulous evil thing in the OT, and like you see more of it later on, but and things like you see glimpses of it in the OT, but you never really explored like what it meant to be living under the thrall of the Empire and why the rebellion is really happening and things like that. And you never question it either because you're going, man, those stormtroopers, they seem evil.
Yeah, and the
Uh,
guys in the gray fascist suits, they're
yeah,
definitely evil.
yeah, yeah. The space Nazis are clearly evil. I don't need to question
Yes.
this.
There are so many little touches in New Hope between Tarkin and Vader that really press into the banality of evil, but also the evilness of evil, if I can sort of say that, because
Just
there's
the
a moment
active
when
maliciousness. Yeah,
the active cruelty and the active maliciousness. Tarkin's like, we have to destroy Alderaan because it's close. It's Dantooine's too far away. We got to destroy Alderaan because it's closer and more people will see it. So it's a better place to show the power of the Death Star. And it's just, this man is, twisted and evil and he's callous. And it's just that comes through so well. The actor is so well. I mean, he took really great lines, but he also put his own spin on it, and it's really chilling. And especially listening to it now, it really hit me a lot harder with some of the Vader and Tarkin lines, talking
can't
about
imagine why.
oh no, I can't imagine either, talking about, they've dissolved the Imperial Senate. And then there's a scene in New Hope after Han and Leia and Chewie have escaped from the Death Star and they've destroyed the 4 TIE fighters, and that Vader and Tarkin are talking about that, and they said, "Yeah, well, we withdrew those just the 4 fighters, so it would make their escape more plausible. But all those fighters were destroyed, all the pilots were killed, and it was a pity that they were lost. But sacrifices have to be made."
See, this is one of the things that I'm finding that I'm everything you've said just sounds so cool about this is the same reason that as a general rule I prefer the more long form, not for everything, but as far as like visual media goes, I generally think that
Yeah.
TV does a better job of communicating a long form story than movies do because there's more space, no pun
Yes.
intended. And it seems like it's a very similar deal here that because they have much more time. 13 episodes, each 30 minutes long, is longer than an hour and a half.
A movie, yes. Oh, yeah, and they got more time to play, they got more time to, show you the world and show you these little scenes that are referred to. You see the scene where Luke sells the speeder, but you actually have that conversation between him selling the speeder. So it's, yeah, you have a lot more room to expand the world, to do a lot more world building.
It's old. It's so funny to me that I'm hearing this now. All those things where I've been like, God, I want to see more of what it's like to just live in this world, more of what it was like to live
Yeah,
in this era, more of what it was like to deal with X, Y, Z, more of what happened between these characters that we never got to see. That in
yeah,
recent years, having fully watched through Clone Wars and watched Mandalorian and watched Andor and all that stuff that I'm now getting through all that I had wanted for so much longer, and it's been there since before I was born.
yeah.
It was
And you were
always
not the
there.
Yeah, but you were not the only person who has never heard of these radio dramas. There are so many Star Wars fans that are hardcore Star Wars fans that I've run into that don't have no idea about the radio drama, and I'll tell them about it, and they'll be, "Oh my God, that sounds so cool. Where do I get this?"
Yeah, I need to ask some people about this because if they don't know, I know some people who would love this.
And it's kind of funny because I think in some ways Hamill got a second bite at the apple to doing some of his character moments, because that whiny line about, "I was going to Tashi Station
Yes.
to pick up," that's very whiny in the movie, and it's not as whiny in the radio drama. So I think he got that extra chance to kind of redo the character in a way. In a way,
That's interesting because that one line informs so much about who we think this character is.
yeah, yep,
Because if you ask people to describe Luke, one of the words you frequently hear, at least about him at the start of his journey, is whiny.
yes, yes, and that comes across a little bit. He's very much a teenager and very much like that kind of rebellious, but doesn't kind of know what to do with his rebellious energy. He just knows he needs to rebel. He just doesn't want to be a farmer, but he's got to be a farmer because he needs to take care of his aunt and uncle who have raised him, and he loves them so much.
Don't worry, the
But he
Empire will do that
doesn't.
for you.
Yeah, yeah, and but he doesn't really want to be there because all his friends are gone, and he doesn't. He's an outsider, and I grew up an outsider, so I really could feel for that character because I
What's
was I
this?
was that too. I
A Star Wars fan who grew up feeling like an outsider? No, say it ain't so.
oh, it's strange. It's I'm very singular in that, but so it was. I mean, I think about these things, and it's really sometimes interesting to look back at things you knew and loved as a kid, to see them through adult eyes, and you see that, okay, this is the thing, I took this from here and I took this from here, and this makes a lot more sense now. Or there are there are two things in Empire that are really their leadership goals or leadership ideas, not like not Vader kill anybody who does wrong, does
You could argue
messes
that's
things
leadership,
up.
I guess.
Oh, that's one version of leadership, but there's another version of leadership that occurs between Han and the commander of the Hoth base. One is where Han goes up to Rankin. I'm pronouncing his name wrong. The commander of Hoth base, and says, "I've got to leave," and the general says, "Well, you're you're good in a fight. I hate to lose you. Good luck. Take care of whatever you need to take care of." And working retail, I've had so many stories of people who give their notice, and they're supposed to give a 2 week notice, but they won't be put on the schedule for those 2 weeks, so they essentially be fired, and they have to choose between, well, okay, I guess I'm not coming to work at all, or they get promoted, and but the store manager or somebody above them will hold them back from going to that new position because they won't let them go.
Yeah.
So that was a big leadership idea that I took from Empire. And then there's another, because I've been a supervisor for a lot of times, and when anybody would get promoted, would move on to another job, I'd say, yes, I'm glad you're moving on. I hate to lose you, but you're moving on to something bigger and better, and I'm good luck. And just I go with my blessing, that sort of thing. I never want to hold people back from moving on to what they want to do. So I kind of took that kind of unconsciously. And there's a second one where Han is they've with the probe droid scene, where Han sees the probe droid, and the general wants Han to get out of the area. They're going to send the speeders in and destroy the probe droid. And Han says, no, 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 there's no time for that. Me and Chewie will take care of it ourselves. And the general says, I trust your judgment. Go do it. And there are so many times when I've said that exact line, I trust your judgment, to somebody who was working under me when I'm going on vacation and I'm leaving you in charge. So I trust your judgment. I've trained you. You know what to do. I trust your judgment. So there's weird things that you find in these medias that you didn't really know you were absorbing until you kind of go back to it and say, oh, I really absorbed that from this. That's really neat.
I'm with you on that one. It's one of those people don't think about how much I mean, I think about it a lot. I've written articles about this very thing, but people don't think about how much the media we consume shapes who we are as people. The like art shapes who we are.
Oh yeah.
So it's one of the things that makes it so interesting to go back as an adult and look at the media that you watched. or played or read or whatever when you were younger, because you can see those through lines and go, oh, that makes sense. I mean, because I really like doing that, going back and finding things that I read or watched or whatever when I was younger and going, does this still hold up? Yes, no, why not? Because it's interesting to me to see
Hmm.
how it has affected me and how it affects me now and how it has shaped who I am now and how it might have done for others. And also, it's just curious, I guess, a bit of curiosity there.
But it's also interesting. There's good things that you take from media, and there's bad things that you take from media, and
Oh,
you
there's
kind
so
of
many bad things people take
there's
from
so many
media.
bad things, yeah. And you look at some people who have, oh, you totally did not see what they were putting down on that show, that you totally think that is not the hero. You think is their hero. That's not the hero.
It is frequently astonishing to me how many people in the Star Wars fandom, especially, lean right or are even far right. I'm like, what movies did you watch?
It's all the Empire did nothing wrong, people. That just I don't understand that. I do not get it. And especially that's the scene you talked about, Andor, the scene in Andor at the beginning of the massacre where the stormtrooper snipes out one of their own people. And you're just like, okay, the cognitive distant diffidence, I'm getting that
Dissidence.
right. Yes. In their minds just below,
Oh,
just I
dissonance
don't
even.
get
Dissidence is
distance.
something else entirely.
That word,
We're
I
good
just
at
don't.
words, people. We write
Yes, we
things.
are. Yes, we are. I can write them. I just can't speak them half the time. But yeah, I don't understand. I just don't get it. It's either I don't understand, and I think I hurt myself when I try to understand, and so I just don't. I just move on and say, okay, you taken the wrong lesson from this story.
I'm not sure you've taken any lesson from this story.
I,
Do you think that they were right just because they won?
I don't know. I do
It's
not know.
I if I get into this, it's all we're going to talk about, and the
Oh
episode's
yes.
going to be eternally. But yeah, from what I hear, the big takeaways that I get from why I need to go and watch this, and why other people listen to this, and why other people should too, is one, just context and depth, because it seems like this fills in a lot of blanks. It expands on a lot of people and concepts and settings and things like that from the OT and the world at large that you might miss out on otherwise. It sounds like the performances are great as well, which is also very nice.
But then again, I'm not the best judge of performances. Sometimes when people will say, that actor was really bad, and I'll say, oh, I thought it was fine. Maybe they did the character well, and I understood it, and so I think
Mark Hamill's in it,
the
it's got to be good.
performances were well. Yeah. Yep.
The context, I mean, the quality of the dialogue and everything as well sounds like something I need to see as well. But just for the context and the depth and the expansion on the experiences of these characters during the OT to like provide context of what's happening in the movies sounds like a good reason in and of itself to listen to these.
Oh yeah, it really is. It really is.
That being said, I we're coming sort of toward the end of our time, so unless there's anything else you particularly want to add, feel free. Otherwise, we can leave it here.
I I think I've gone over pretty much everything that I really wanted to say, because I mean, there's so
You could
I
probably do a
wish
whole
I had.
podcast series just on this by the sounds
I
of it. Yeah.
probably could, because I really should have wrote down but I would have filled pages and pages of really cool lines and really cool scenes. So, but just got to listen to it. You just got to
Oh
listen
no,
to it,
people
make
will
up your
have
own
to
mind
listen
for
to the
it.
thing.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They have to. And I warn you, Jedi is not that great. It's really short. It's only 6 episodes, and only Anthony Daniels came back as the from the original as their voice cast. So it's not. I mean, it's not up to the high bar that New Hope and Empire went to. It's still interesting and it's still fun, but it's not. It's not as good. And it was produced and written way later. It was in
Yeah,
'96,
that
I believe.
that one was in the 90s. Yeah, they sort of came back,
Yeah,
were like, well, we should probably finish it, I guess. And I suppose by
yeah,
that point, Mark Hamill was very busy, so
yes, yeah,
and much more expensive.
yes. Oh, much more expensive probably. But yeah, but it still has moments and still has really good moments. But yeah, but the first two are definitely must listen.
Yeah, I'll definitely make a point of getting to it at some point, as I do for most of the things I've heard about that I haven't quite gotten to. But
Yes. Yep.
until then, if for those of you who are listening to this on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcast or any of those, you can also find these episodes on radfordwrites.com, my website, where I also post stories and blogs and articles and poetry, and you can buy my books there. Basically, all of my things that I do can be found there. And I know you already introduced some of your stuff at the onset of the episode, but where can people find you? Where can people buy your books? What are they called?
The best place to find me is servants of the www.servantsofthemoonandsun.com. That's my website, and you can find everything about me, about all the links to my books, summaries on my books, other podcasts I've been on. I'm on Twitter a little bit, on Blue Sky mostly as Servants and. But all those social links are at my website, servantsofthemoonandsun.com, and that is also the name of my series. Servants of the Moon and Sun.com. The first two books are Talia, Heir to the Fairy Realm, and Talia on the Shore of the Sea. Those two books were written together, and we split them when we published them because it would have been one long volume. And as a debut writer, you don't want a huge book to start off. But that's where to start.
Well, there you have it, and it's been great having you on. I love a chance to geek out about Star Wars stuff, and people keep giving you those chances. So,
Oh yes, it's always great. And thank you for having me on. And I'm really glad. I listened to a bunch of episodes, and they were really interesting people. And so you've got a great thing going on here.
oh, thank you, and hopefully we'll find excuses to collaborate on more things in the future. We'll see.
That would be cool.
Right, goodbye.
Okay. Talk to you later.